Hey, what's up there YouTube? How's it going? So in the past, I've made many different beatboxing tutorials. But in those tutorials, there are certain tips that I forgot to mention that would be very helpful for beginner beatboxers to improve their beatboxing. So that's why today in this video, I'm going to tell you 5 tips that every beginner beatboxer should know. And I hope that this is helpful, and now I'm going to get started with the first tip of the day. Alright, so my first tip of the day is to always have water with you when you're beatboxing. And if you're a beginner at beatboxing, you might be thinking, well, how exactly is water going to help me be a better beatboxer? And that's a very good question. And the answer to that question is that when a lot of people do beatboxing sounds that involve using the back of their throat, such as throat bass, a lot of people complain that these sounds are very difficult to do, or that they hurt a lot. I even get a lot of comments like this on my throat bass tutorial. People will be saying stuff like, oh, this sound made me cough a lot, or this sound really hurts my throat. And a lot of times the reason why this happens is because the back of your throat is very dry, or there's a ton of mucus that's very tight down there. So when you drink water before you beatbox, this will make the back of your throat not dry anymore, and it'll also loosen up everything that's tight down there, which will in turn make the sound easier to do. If the sound is easier to do, then it'll be less of a strain on the back of your throat. And if you're not straining the back of your throat as much anymore, then the sound's not going to hurt nearly as much as it would have if you were doing it with a really dry throat. So yeah, problem solved. And now I'm going to move on to the second tip of the day. Alright, so my second tip of the day is I'm going to teach you how to not run out of breath when you beatbox. And one of the most common questions I get from beginner beatboxers is, Kevin, how do you beatbox for so long without getting out of breath? And the answer to this question is that a good beatboxer should be able to incorporate sounds into their beats that allow them to breathe in or take in air so they won't get out of breath. And in my opinion, the easy way to do this is to literally take in a normal breath in the middle of your beats. And I'll show you what that sounds like. It can actually turn out cool sometimes. See how I just took in a normal breath and it actually sounded pretty cool in the beat? Now, if you want to do that, that can work. But the most common way that people take in air or breathe in during beats is they use what's called the inward K snare, which sounds like... And that clip was actually from my inward K snare tutorial, so if you're interested in learning that sound for yourself, then I'll leave the link to that tutorial down in the description so then you can learn the inward K snare. So obviously, as you can see, there are several different ways that you can take in air while beatboxing. I just taught you the 2 ways that I use the most, but there are many more that you can learn, so good luck with learning all that. And now I'm going to move on to the third tip of the day. Alright, so my third tip of the day is to not be afraid to experiment with your beatboxing. Now, the reason why experimentation is so important for beatboxing is because it's actually helped me out in a couple ways. And the first way is that experimenting with my beatboxing helped me learn some sounds that I actually had a lot of trouble with. And I'll explain to you what I mean. There have been times in the past where I've taken 2 different beatboxing sounds and combined them together to learn another beatboxing sound. And here's an example. In the past, I took the zipper sound like... and I took the click roll sound like... and I did both of those sounds at the same time because I was just messing around and experimenting. And I actually figured out that those 2 sounds put together create the Sega sound, which goes like... And by the way, that clip was actually from my Sega sound tutorial, so if you're interested in learning that sound, I'll put the link to that tutorial down in the description. But do you see how experimenting with my beatboxing helped me accidentally learn something that I was having trouble with for a while? And the second way experimentation really helped me out with beatboxing is it helped me kind of create my own unique style, because experimentation let me create new beatboxing sounds that nobody's ever done before. And an example of this is in the past, I took the lip oscillation like the and I did it at the same time as the tongue bass like the and I did both of those at the same time, and it actually helped me create a cool car engine sound effect, which goes like... And that clip was actually from my car engine sound effect tutorial, so if you want to check that out and learn it, then I'll leave the link in the description. But see how by me taking 2 sounds that I knew and putting them together, I was also able to create something new as well. So basically, to sum up what I was saying before, if you experiment with your beatboxing by taking stuff you already know and trying new things with it and putting your own twist to it, or taking 2 things you know and combining them together, you might wind up being pleasantly surprised. because it might help you learn something that you've been trying to learn for a while, or experimenting might also help you create something completely new and awesome. And now that I taught you a little bit about experimenting with your beatboxing, now I'm going to move on to the fourth tip of the day. Alright, so my fourth tip of the day is to make sure you master the basics of beatboxing before you learn anything complex. And the best way to learn beatboxing, in my opinion, is to start from the basics and keep on building on that and building on that until eventually you make it to the top where you're learning the complex stuff. You can't just start from the basics, skip everything in the middle and go straight to the top. That's not how it works. For example, when some beginner beatboxers start off, they just think, oh, well, if I know a lot of beatboxing sounds, then that means I'm a good beatboxer. So they'll go and they'll learn a ton of different beatboxing sounds, but they'll skip the basics of learning how to keep a steady flow and tempo and learning how to structure a beat. So then when they try to do beats of their own, yeah, they know a lot of sounds, but it just sounds like a bunch of random sounds all over the place. It doesn't sound like a real organized beat. So what I'm trying to say is learn the basics first, make sure you're really good at that and you master the basics, then just keep building on that, and eventually, when enough time passes and you learn enough, you'll be ready for the complex stuff. Just don't rush it. Take your time when it comes to beatboxing. And I know that this is gonna sound cheesy, but you know the old saying, slow and steady wins the race. Same goes for beatboxing. If you take your time and put in that effort to master every little bit of beatboxing, eventually you'll work your way up to the top, and that'll give you the best results in the long run. Alright, and my fifth and final tip for the day is to make sure you come up with good methods for practicing, because the better you practice, the better you're going to be. Now once you're beatboxing for a while, you're going to start to develop your own methods of practicing that work really well for you and get you good results. But for now, I'm going to tell you a few methods that I use that work really well for me, because I think it's going to work well for you too. So the first method that I'm going to teach you that I use when I practice is, if you're trying to learn a beat that's very fast or complex, you can't just start off practicing it at a very high speed, like no, you can't be doing that. You have to start off at a very slow speed and then gradually work your way up to that high speed. So let's just say, for example, start practicing slow, like okay, good. You're comfortable at that speed. Now take it a little bit faster, like and then eventually keep gradually getting faster and faster until you work your way up to a high speed, like just like that. And my second method for practicing that can be helpful to you is, if you're one of those people that has trouble staying on tempo or has trouble keeping your beats clean, then I would suggest getting yourself a metronome app to practice with. This app is actually called Pro Metronome, and you set what BPM or speed you want your beat to be, and then it clicks along to make sure that you're staying on tempo. And then you can do a beat while this is playing. So having an app like that is also very helpful to practice with, because it helps you learn to keep a steady tempo and it helps you learn to keep your beats cleaner. And now obviously over time, like I said, you're going to develop practicing methods of your own, but I just taught you a few methods that I've used to practice that I thought would be very simple and would be helpful to all of you too. And that's pretty much it for today. And if you're a beginner beatboxer, I really hope that these 5 tips that I taught you today were very helpful to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave those questions down in the comments and I'll answer them and help you out the best I can. That's pretty much it for today. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, follow my Instagram called Kevin YouTube, click that notification bell so you're notified anytime I make a new video, and peace!